Hey guys, here today with another Shurogorov knife video. Today we have in front of us the F3 Aquatic, very sought after knife that has released quite recently, and was able to get one of these to do a video on myself here. Now the F3 Aquatic is basically just a limited production version of the very popular F3 with obviously this aquatic theme here. Water being the theme. I believe this is part of a new series that the workshop's trying to introduce with these elemental types, and they've debuted here with the aquatic as the first one. Comes with this really cool bead here, very unique bead. We'll take a look at that later on. And some very premium materials, and also some very interesting hardware upgrades as well, which I really want to talk about in the video here today. But first, let's go over the specs of the knife real quickly. Again, this being an F3, it's obviously the same size as an F3NS, production F3NS, the F95, of course, hot tees. Any F95 size knife is going to be in that similar size range here. So really nothing too much to report. The weight, I will just measure it real quick. It does have this bead on here, so I think it will weigh a little bit heavier than what the knife will be by itself, but seeing around a little bit over 5 ounces, similar weight with the bead to an F95, so probably a little bit lighter without the bead, obviously. I believe I've done a video on the normal production F3NS. You'd probably take a look if you want the exact weight there. But moving on to what makes this knife special here. First, let's start off with the blade. The blade is Vanax 37. 4mm blade stock, so that actually hasn't changed compared to the F3NS, which was one of the first knives to receive the current generational changes. Shurogorovs have been updated so many times in the past couple years, and they really do them. The schedule is really not fixed for each model, so it's very interesting to kind of talk about it. It seems like they've simplified the generational naming scheme by having like a Gen 4, for example, the new F95T is called the Gen 4. We have the Hati Gen 3, the 111 Gen 5. But again, you can see they're out of step here because they've been updated at various points and not at the same time. The F3NS right now is probably the oldest knife or the oldest knife to not have received an update yet. And so you still see that 4mm blade stock compared to the Hati, the F95 Turtle, the 111, which are now using the new 3.5 thin blade stock thickness, which again used to be considered thin, but now is standard. Point being, we still have a 4mm blade stock here. Some people do like that thicker blade stock, which again has been the Shurogorov standard for many years now. But something I wanted to point out. The Vanax 37 blade steel, I think, is a very great fit for the aquatic theme here. Very rust resistant, all but rust proof, being a nitrogen steel here. And, if you live in a very humid climate or you are close to water, this would be a very perfect choice for you. Nothing too remarkable in terms of the blade other than the steel. However, the finish is still that normal production stone wash. Which is just, slightly a little bit coarser. Really, you wouldn't be able to tell unless you had, say, like a custom division up against it. This one is dirty, really not a good example, but you can see here, hopefully the camera can pick it up, just a little bit coarser, which again is better for heavier use. The handle, however, does see a lot of changes here. First, I want to talk about the material. The material is TechnoCarbo, which is an offshoot of Carbo Tie. I believe they are manufactured by the same company. The main differences between Carbo Tie and TechnoCarbo are the thickness of the carbon fiber threads. I believe Carbo Tie is around 3 times as thin. That allows a very tight weave, and you get a similar effect to Carbo Quartz, which is again using very thin thread technology. TechnoCarbo, on the other hand, is closer to a normal carbon fiber weave. You can see here we have a very beautiful marble pattern here with 2 color accents, this dark blue and this teal here, combined with that black carbon fiber, marble carbon fiber pattern. You get this really nice, dark depths of the ocean type effect, and very beautiful handle material here. And of course, complements the aquatic theme very well. The handle itself, the profile, the milling is the exact same as the normal F3NS. We still have those cuts here on the top left and the bottom right of the handle. We still have that horizontal or diagonal milling here as well to provide some texture. We do get these beautiful pivot collars here, which are anodized in this kind of baby blue, Tiffany blue, that also matches the backspacer and clip here as well. So that's a nice upgrade to see. Moving over to the other side here, you can see that clip being done that same color as I had described earlier, and the backspacer as well. This is running on MRBS right here, and does have that internal milling like you would expect on an F3NS. Taking a look at the bead here that comes with it, you can see that we have the new larger bead to match the new large pivot screw. It's done in this very subtle two-tone anodization. You can see we have darkened titanium with some blue accents on the inside of the pivot screw. And taking a look at the back here, we have this very nice kind of water pattern here, along with the Shurogrov logo, with the flats done in this kind of burnished finish. Looks really nice in the light. Now, lastly, wanting to talk about the handle upgrades. From a technical perspective, we have some very, very interesting upgrades here. The first one I want to talk about, well, actually there's two of them for both of these screws here, but what really has changed on this knife, and I think what makes this really amazing, is the new captured pivot system, which we had seen on other knives. The Hati Magnetic was really the first to see, or sorry, not the Hati Magnetic. The Hati Gen 3 was the first to see this CPS captured pivot system. But basically what it is it's the female part of the pivot screw has this kind of star type arrangement. There's 9 splines on it that interlock with the pivot collar here. And what that allows is for the screw not to turn while you're disassembling it. This is very useful as Shurogorovs do require Loctite. They are just a normal screw type assembly, not a pivot bushing. So you can't just crank down on them. And so with the use of Loctite, for some people it can be very difficult to disassemble their knives. I always advocate for squeezing the blade into the stop pin. This minimizes any damage that you're going to do to the blade. And then, squeezing on it very hard, taking the driver and then unscrewing it. But with this new index screw system, you pretty much don't need to do that at all anymore. And in fact, it's so simple to do. I'm gonna do it on camera here just to show you what it looks like. And take a look here. Sure don't damage the blade. And as you can see here, this is the female screw. There's actually 9 splines here because obviously if there were 8, 6, or 4, you would kind of have a symmetrical pattern, but with 9, the rotation kind of changes the screw angle just a little bit. So it seems like there's more options. The reason why they do that is the workshop likes to align the screws so that they're facing a similar direction when the knife comes out of the factory. If you take a look here at my custom division, you can see something similar with the screws kind of facing like this. So this just gives them some more opportunities to make sure that everything aligns correctly. If you take a look at the blade or the knife here, you can see on the other side, the interface on the handle. It's very curious here because the F3NS, since this is a limited edition knife, it does have these pivot collars, but I'm very curious to see how this would happen on the normal production F3NS, as there are no pivot collars. And of course, this isn't something you can really mill into the carbon fiber directly. I'm not sure if Shurogrov would deem that stable enough, especially as you're cranking down that screw, to not have the carbon fiber shear. So we'll have to see that how that goes in the future. The Hati Gen 3, which does have the CPS system, of course, the lock side is titanium, so there's no problems there. I'm not too sure if the CPS system is on the F95 Gen 4 as well, the new knife that just came out recently, but it does have a feature that this knife has as well, which we'll talk about in just a bit here. But you can see with the screws aligned here, you know, this is very repeatable. You just have to find out which spline you need to match into the handle here. Okay, we go into the rear screw. You can see this rear screw is also indexed as well. A little bit hard to see, but it has a triangular shape. You can see one flat here. There's another flat that's parallel to the clip that actually allows it to slide perfectly out when you're disassembling it. Obviously, that's part of the integration, as the new clip here is actually blind screwed. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. That is a change from the production F3NS. The clip is now blind screwed, something that we've been seeing on many other of the production knives as well. The F95T Gen 4, I believe the F95 Zero as well has a blind screw clip. So we're finally seeing that in the F3NS. But anyways, we now have a captured rear screw as well. Obviously, the rear screw has been an issue for some people as well. Not as big of a hassle compared to the pivot screw, obviously, because the pivot screw is required to maintain the knife to clean the blade. But having that indexed rear screw is, I think, a very big plus as well. And Shirogorov has now really covered all their bases in terms of having a very easily disassembleable knife. Of course, given that you have the drivers and all. Now, the rear portion is actually, since there are only three, they're not even splines, it's just kind of a triangular cut, it is milled into the carbon fiber. So perhaps we might see something like that for the front pivot screw, given that I don't expect the production F3NS or whenever that new F3, whatever generational upgrade, I don't think it'll come with a pivot collar, so we might see something similar for that. But very interesting to see that, and interesting to see that all these changes are now culminating into a knife that has both a rear and a pivot index screw system. Again, just quality of life improvements, and honestly, I think they've been a long time coming. The custom division knives, they've had index pivots for a while now. Interestingly enough, and even on the full customs as well, Sergey has been just doing a very primitive system of a ball, a dimple in the handle, and then literally an MRBS 1.5 millimeter ball bearing. So it's very interesting to see that these production knives, and these limited productions as well, have been getting higher tech solutions to that problem. But again, I think this is great for the average Shirogorov, user who isn't, going to custom division lottos or spending thousands of dollars at auctions for a full custom to get that index pivot, which again is a little bit hard to disassemble anyways with that full custom pivot. But anyways, I digress. I've been talking about this for far too long. This is a very interesting knife. Very curious to see if we're going to see any other of these elemental knives, whether they're going to be different models or if they're going to continue with the F3NS just with different carbon fiber patterns. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.